Have you ever seen someone little by little lose perspective on what really matters before your very eyes? It began as a tale of family, of love, devotion, and the struggle to construct a life together when the framework wasn't exactly standard. Sister Wives began as reality, as unfiltered, an intimate look at a plural marriage founded on religion and, allegedly, harmony. Somehow, though, things got altered, and not the typical reality TV style. The change went deeper, quieter at first, but it insidiously crept into every aspect. The manner in which they talked to one another, the manner in which they gazed at one another, the manner in which one man began prioritizing appearances over relationships, appearances over the feel of things on the inside rather than the outside. Have you ever lived in a family or observed one where someone's attention or even love seemed to hinge on how together they appeared? Where being thin or neat or quiet earned more affection than being honest, loyal, or available? That's the tale we're going to discuss today. Because Sister Wives has become less about a family navigating polygamy and more about the unraveling of a man's priorities. And through it all, we've watched women who once stood shoulder to shoulder slowly realize they were never on equal footing. Why did Kody place so much importance on image? Why were some daughters praised while others were overlooked? Why did the wives, who were tough in their own right, start to question their value just because they didn't resemble her? And when did love become something that needed to be won, or worse, performed? You know, when this show started up, a lot of people, particularly those of us who've raised kids, managed marriages, or navigated messy dynamics, were interested, even optimistic. There was something appealing about watching a family attempt to make so large and intricate a system work. We could see the dysfunction, of course, but there was also vulnerability, tenacity, and a sense that love might be able to stretch far enough to include it all. But now it seems like that initial vision has been lost under a subtle form of control, an obsession with outward beauty, a rejection of anyone who didn't conform. And the saddest part is, it wasn't just the wives fighting for love. The daughters caught up too. Think of being a teenage girl and wondering if your dad loves you just that little bit more because your hair is styled or you are dressed well. That perhaps you only get noticed when you dress the part. That level of pressure? It doesn't dissipate. It stays with you. It determines the way you perceive yourself and what you believe you must become in order to be loved. So what became of the family that once boasted of togetherness? How did love become favoritism? And what does it say about a man who admits, on tape, that his love for one wife expired the day he watched her devour nachos? Yeah, that happened. Today, we're going to revisit some of the most revealing and honestly disturbing moments from the recent tell-all and beyond. We're going to talk about what Christine finally had the courage to say out loud, what Janelle had to quietly endure, and what the children, especially the daughters, might carry with them long after the cameras stop rolling. And we'll ask the questions that don't always have easy answers. What does it mean when a father begins judging his children on the way they look? When a husband can't even pretend to love his wife unless she meets some unseen, ever-changing ideal? This isn't about being dramatic. It's about being real. Because what we're watching here isn't just the end of a marriage or a reality show. It's the slow unraveling of what happens when love is no longer unconditional, and when appearances take the place of connection. So grab a seat, get yourself a cup of coffee or tea, and let's discuss what's really happening in this family. Not only what appears on TV, but the unspoken realities behind it all. Because sometimes, the things that tell us the most about someone aren't the words they say, but the things they demonstrate without even knowing it. Hello, my friends. Well, the shocking tell-all episode aired over a week ago, formally bringing season 19 of Sister Wives to a close. And yes, there is going to be a season 20. But honestly, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to fly, particularly after so many of you have expressed that you're simply just not as invested anymore. And I get it, really. Lots of people don't feel right about watching as long as Kody and Robyn remain at the show's forefront. And who can blame you? It kind of feels similar to what occurred with Little People, Big World. You know, when a show has obviously reached its ending point, but they just keep going, most likely more out of habit and paycheck responsibility than actual intent. By the end of that episode, it seemed like they were just patching together whatever material they had. It kind of feels similar to what occurred with Little People, Big World. You know, when a show has obviously reached its ending point, but they just keep going. Most likely more out of habit and paycheck responsibility than actual intent. By the end of that episode, it seemed like they were just patching together whatever material they had. The family members gradually peeled off until it was basically just Zach and Tori manning the ship. And when they too wanted to split as well, boom. Over. Show's over. But with Sister Wives, it's a bit of an exception, because officially, nobody has actually quit the show, so they just keep filming. The ratings continue to roll in, and the Browns continue to have a story to tell. But let's face it, the show isn't as good as it once was. It's changed so much from where it began that now I feel like I'm watching a show titled Sister Wives, with no actual sister wives on board. You catch my drift? Nevertheless, one thing truly did resonate with me from the recent tell-all. Christine mentioned something that really put into perspective how much the dynamics of the family shifted when Robyn got there. She spoke about how Kody cared more and more about appearances. Not only how the family ran, but how it appeared. All of a sudden, presentation was everything. Robyn always seemed put together. Her children were always dressed well. And everybody else? Well, they were supposed to keep up with that new standard. Kind of ironic, isn't it? Because back in the day when the show originally started, Kody wasn't so much the epitome of luxury. Okay, yeah, he may have been a little flashier than the average polygamist, but he was still rather conservative. They were broke. The other wives had old, beat-up cars with bumpers held on by duct tape, literally. And then there's Kody cruising around in his convertible Lexus. That should have been a red flag right there. A small glimpse into his self-absorbed side. As Robyn became more involved, Kody started making comments about what kind of women he was attracted to. He'd say things like, "Oh, I've always liked curvier women." But let's be honest, his actions told a different story. He clearly had a strong preference for Robyn's slimmer, more polished look. She kind of had that diesel jeans model vibe going on, and Kody was clearly smitten. There's even the tale I heard from a hair and makeup designer who worked with the family at one of their initial People magazine shoots when the show had just launched. They mentioned they had done a nice job with Robyn's hair for the shoot. But the minute they were finished, Robyn went and redid the whole thing herself. Yep, redid it from top to bottom. And supposedly, even that wasn't quite good enough for Robyn. The stylist I was telling you about informed me that after styling Robyn's hair, Robyn went and totally restyled it, all to look the way Kody liked. Whatever his idea of the perfect look was. And while she was preparing hair, makeup, dress, the stylist said that Kody wouldn't shut up about how gorgeous Robyn was. Over and over, he referred to her as his supermodel wife, out loud, repeatedly. And yes, although he might not have told her so directly in front of the other wives, they were all in the same house. They could certainly hear him. She claimed it felt like he was fixated with the way she appeared, having her turn around, striking a pose to display her outfit, admiring her from all sides. "That's my supermodel wife," he repeated incessantly, again and again. Now, after hearing all this, the stylist added something that really resonated with me. She found Kody to be narcissistic. She felt it was greatly off-putting that he behaved in that manner, given the knowledge that there were other wives within the house. By elevating Robin to this pedestal, portraying her as the ideal, it made it appear as if the others did not count. As if their value was suddenly based on how well they compared to this one ideal of beauty that he worshipped. And in all seriousness, it shouldn't come as a shock to hear Christine say later on that Kody became fixated on the family image. It wasn't so much about being a family anymore. It was about how they appeared as a family. Reflect back on the first few seasons shortly after Robin arrived. Suddenly, we weren't simply observing family life. We were observing the wives undergoing weight loss transformations. Do you recall that? Now let me ask you something. Did Kody ever have to endure that on television? Did he ever have to stand on a scale for millions of people to witness? Because Janelle did. Time and time again. She had weigh-ins that were featured on the show. Trainers spoke candidly about her health and her weight. And of course, we all know that excess weight can carry health consequences. But let's be real. Personal trainers are not physicians. And those vignettes? They tended to feel more shaming than supportive. Like they weren't about her health at all, but about pressuring Janelle to live up to some tacit expectation. And Robin? She'd appear in those same scenes, always balancing the least, always looking put together. And then she'd mouth things like, "It's so difficult being thin. Kody doesn't even like thin girls." She'd tell me he preferred more voluptuous women. But come on, his actions were telling a very different tale. Then you had Janelle asked to blog about her own weight loss transformation for TLC, making her health issues a spectator sport. Even if she consented to it, it just felt humiliating. As though she was being railroaded into a narrative Kody needed to market. A narrative that presented the wives as needing to compete, particularly with Robin. And throughout the years, of course, the women's weights changed. Like, for the most part, everyone's do. And let me be crystal clear. Their weight should not concern us in any way. But the way the show presented it just made it clear that Kody created a standard based on Robin, a visual reference point. And that simply is not fair. Because at the end of the day, he'd spent years with these women. Decades, in some cases. He ought to have loved them for who they were, not for the way, well, they fit his changing ideal. Whether they were a size 4 or a size 14 wasn't supposed to be an issue. What was supposed to matter was what was on the inside.